In 1964, while America was celebrating the Civil Rights Act and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was preaching nonviolence in the streets of Alabama, a group of black men in a small Louisiana town made a revolutionary decision. They picked up guns. Not to start riots, not to initiate violence, but to protect their families and their communities from a Klan that the government refused to stop. Their names are almost forgotten, but their defiance changed the civil rights movement forever. The Klan was terrorizing Jonesboro, Louisiana. According to documented accounts, between 1963 and 1964, white supremacists burned 5 churches, a Masonic Hall, and a Baptist center. The Congress of Racial Equality had established a Freedom House in Jonesboro to coordinate voter registration and integration efforts. The Klan made it clear this would not be tolerated. They paraded 50 cars through the black neighborhood. According to historical records, they were led by the assistant police chief's car. They distributed KKK leaflets threatening retaliation. The message was unmistakable. Cooperate with CORE, and we will destroy you. The black community had no protection. The police were complicit. The state was silent. So on July 10, 1964, according to documented records, Earnest, Willy Thomas, and Frederick Douglass Kirkpatrick founded the Deacons for Defense and Justice. Most of the men who joined were veterans. They had served in World War II. They had served in Korea. They knew how to use weapons. They understood military discipline. They understood that when the government fails to protect you, you protect yourself. The Deacons weren't a militia. They had strict membership requirements according to historical documentation. They accepted only men over 21. They preferred married men with military service. They refused men with reputations for hot-headedness. Every member pledged his life for the defense of justice, black people, and civil rights workers. During the day, they concealed their guns. At night, they carried them openly, because Louisiana law allowed it, to discourage Klan activity in the black community. This was a revolutionary act, not because they were violent, but because they rejected the narrative that black people must accept violence without defense. Stokely Carmichael, who would later lead the Black Panthers, said this about the Deacons: "Here is a group which realized that the law and law enforcement agencies would not protect people, so they had to do it themselves." He understood what America's establishment didn't want to admit. Nonviolence cannot exist alone when violence is being perpetrated against you. By February 1965, the Deacons had expanded to Bogalusa, Louisiana, where the Klan was equally vicious. According to historical accounts, the Bogalusa chapter was led by Charles Sims, A.Z. Young, and Robert Hicks, all working-class men, all refusing to be terrorized. The Deacons protected CORE activists. They protected James Farmer Jr., the national director of CORE, when he came to Bogalusa. They stood guard at civil rights marches. They provided security for the 1966 March Against Fear from Memphis to Jackson, Mississippi. Wherever the Klan threatened, the Deacons were present. Something unprecedented happened. The Klan's terror diminished. According to historical documentation, the Deacons' presence meant the Klan could no longer intimidate and terrorize local African Americans without facing challenge. Federal authorities noticed. Governor John McKeithen was forced to intervene, the first Deep South governor to capitulate to the civil rights movement. Federal investigators began coordinating with state officials to neutralize the Klan's operations in Louisiana. But the establishment's response was telling. The FBI opened an investigation into the Deacons. J. Edgar Hoover, after reading about them in the New York Times in 1965, ordered field offices to investigate them as a potential threat. The NAACP and SCLC remained publicly silent or repudiated them. Mainstream civil rights organizations couldn't acknowledge that armed self-defense had achieved what nonviolence alone had not. The Deacons didn't reject nonviolence. They understood that while CORE activists engaged in peaceful protests, someone had to provide defense. While King preached nonviolent disobedience, someone had to ensure activists weren't murdered in the night. The Deacons called it vigilante nonviolence, combining peaceful protest with armed deterrence. One complemented the other. By 1968, the Deacons had faded. The Voting Rights Act passed. Black people began entering politics. The Black Power movement emerged, and attention shifted elsewhere. The rise of the Black Panthers eclipsed them. FBI surveillance intensified. By 1968, they were nearly extinct. For decades, they were barely mentioned in civil rights history. The 2003 documentary Deacons for Defense, starring Forrest Whitaker, finally brought their story back to light. But by then, America had forgotten them. Here's what the establishment doesn't want you to know. Self-defense works. The Deacons didn't start the civil rights movement, but they protected it when it mattered most. They showed that black manhood meant defending your family. They showed that when the government fails, the community rises. They showed that sometimes change requires more than marches. Sometimes it requires someone willing to say, "This far and no further." The Deacons weren't heroes because they used guns. They were heroes because they refused to accept that their people deserved to be terrorized. They forced the system to acknowledge them. They made the Klan afraid. In a moment when America was teaching black people to accept violence peacefully, the Deacons taught them to defend themselves with dignity. Comment below and tell me, which hidden truth about the civil rights movement has shocked you most? Share this with someone who thinks black liberation came only through non-violence. Subscribe to Ikamafuna History TV because we tell the stories America erased. The Deacons were real. Their victories were real, and their legacy deserves to be known. What other untold stories of black resistance demand to be remembered? Tell us in the comments. Let's ensure the Deacons for Defense are never forgotten again.